I'd like to welcome everybody to the Hood River White Salmon Bridge Authority meeting of August the 25th, 2 p.m. And let's start out with the roll call. I see that Arthur Babbitts is present. Grant Paulson is present. Catherine Thomas is online. Jacob Anderson is here. Eric Wilson is here. Mark Flaming is here. Do I see anybody from Nate or Jake Edwards? I don't see them online yet. We understand Doug Gibson will be calling in shortly. And I don't see Ben Berger as well. Okay, but we do have a quorum. So we'll continue. Is there any modifications, additions to the agenda? If not, could I have a motion to accept the agenda as is?
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. Taking a look at the last meeting minutes from August the 11th. Hopefully everybody's had a chance to go through them. Is there any corrections that are needed? If not, could I have a motion to accept the meeting notes?
So move.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Jake Edwards just chimed in too, as well.
Jake Edwards.
Oh, Jake Edwards. Okay, thank you, Jake. So the meeting minutes passes. Public comment. Is there anybody signed on? I don't see anybody in the room. Is there anyone signed on that would wish to make a comment? I don't see anyone with hands up. So we'll proceed forward. Executive reports, co-chairs reports. Dick, do you have anything?
Nothing is not on the agenda.
Okay. I've got one item that I would like us to think about. We stopped the clock in the corner of the room, the countdown clock, when we didn't get our funding and things started slipping and sliding and we didn't know when we were going to start design and so on. I think we're real close now to proceeding with design. We've got funding available for that. I would offer up that I think once we get Kiewit's final schedule and we give them a notice to proceed, we restart the clock with the end date being complete 100% design, which per the current schedule, I think is June of 27, assuming that that schedule is what gets approved to go forward with. But I think it's kind of a way that we can kind of re-vector ourselves towards our next major goal is getting design behind us. As in parallel, we're pushing hard to find more funding so we can keep going into design. But that's our next big milestone as far as the success of the project, getting design behind us. And I would offer that up. Yep.
I take the counter argument. I don't think the public has any particular appreciation for that as a goal. The point of this project isn't to get a design done, it's to get a bridge. I think really anything short of a schedule and the real path to get a bridge done is going to seem very hollow and maybe counterproductive to us.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting that we make this public, but I think for our team, the HNDB team, the Kiewit team, keeping that out in front of them that, hey, that's our next major goal is we got to finish design. And there's going to be lots of opportunities for it to get extended out. So that's why I'm kind of pushing this. And it's not for external, it's for our internal team.
So purely internal function. Yeah, that's different. I guess then I would reserve my thoughts on that then until we have an actual schedule from Kiewit.
Okay. Other comments?
I just go on. I agree with Arthur that for public on a bridge, for motivation on our team, I think it would be a really good thing. And whether it's that design or if there's an interim milestone that makes more sense to the team members actually working on things. I think that might be a consideration as well. I'm not sure what that would be right off the top, but.
All right, so we'll keep that once we get the real schedule and we're ready to do a notice to proceed, come back and look at it. Project director report.
Yep, so I gave you a list of activities. I'll just hit on the highlights. We're still coordinating with FHWA on the treaty tribes. There are some conversations. We've gotten some new members from FHWA that we're bringing up to speed. We had a conversation this morning with the FHWA division office about just getting with the new headquarters division or headquarters folks and just talking through kind of guidance on that. We're also starting discussions with FHWA about signing I'll call it a charter or an MOU between the authority and FHWA just to solidify roles and responsibilities, not only with the treaty MOA, but also with just everyday things that are going on with the project to make sure there's a good, clear roles and responsibilities definition with us and FHWA. So we'll continue to move those forward. The appraisal's starting to wrap up on the 6F, so we anticipate bringing that to you soon. They're just running through some minor adjustments that need to be made on how they're incorporating some of the equipment that's sitting over there and whether they do or do not have to include that in the improvements. So down to some of the final details there. We did have a conversation with FHWA this morning about separating the CDS funding from the infra. They're still investigating the approach to that. So we'll continue to look at that and look at getting that funding separated out.
CDS.
Congressional directed spending. There's a couple different ways they say that, but congressional directed spending, sorry. The Washington State funding agreement, we did get approval on that. I think that's actually in the packet today.
Yep.
So you've seen that. The contracts for Kiewit are going through their final review with their higher level management just so they can get their final sign offs, but they just have a process they need to do. So as soon as that's done, we're looking with the receipt of the Washington agreement, looking at getting them the notice to proceed within the next couple weeks.
There's a couple things that we're holding back to make sure those are.
Yep. So we're waiting on getting a baseline schedule, baseline cash flow, authorized for Kiewit. We want to make sure we've got all of our org charts and everything.
So can you be clear, the cash flow question, we do not yet know where our cash flow is, right? Because we don't know congressionally directed spending as one example.
We want Kiewit's cash flow based on how they're scheduling phase 1B so that we understand what their burn rate is to be able to tie that into all the other contracts that the authority has so that we know what our cash flow is between now and completing design. And then we can match that up with the available funding sources that we have and be able to determine the timing of when those fundings, similar to what we've
So you want
previous phases.
You want their cash, we say cash flow, but it's more cash, it's more expenditure schedule that you're looking for, which is based on presuming available funding.
So let's step in. We think the current funding profile from the two states will allow us to go ahead and give the notice to proceed to Kiewit.
Right.
So the funding profile of the states coming in, we believe will fund the needs of Kiewit and HNTB and others. But we need a cash flow from Kiewit profiled to the real schedule to validate that.
Right, but that cash flow, how do I put it? That notice to proceed will have two paths in front of it. One path, presuming that there's federal funding available, another, or the additional federal funding available, another, presuming it's not.
No, we're cash flowing it with the sources of funding that we have in hand or able to access.
We have in hand. Okay.
Does not include the CDS.
Okay. So,
that we have not signed agreements.
so then those would be opportunities to accelerate from that baseline schedule?
Potentially accelerate,
Okay.
or if other funding becomes available. To advance construction activities, pre-construction, if we would get full funding. Also to, if we got federal funding, access to the federal funding, we can offset some of the state funding that we're using now.
Right.
To balance between state and federal. So it'll just depend on when those funds become available and how we can use them.
So what we said, I think at the last meeting, was that that without the federal funding available, that we were going to be proceeding with the design, but in not the most efficient manner. And that we acknowledge, we need to acknowledge that. So that's kind of become the baseline now rather than the fallback.
So
Before it's described as the fallback.
given the final agreements with Kiewit and understanding where those costs have came in, giving the amendment that you'll see for the owner's rep contract, we have enough funding through the two state sources with the CDS funding to fully fund what we see as expenditures right now.
With the CDS.
Yes. So without that.
Okay.
So that gives us enough authorization to go ahead and go forward with Kiewit under
Right.
funding sources that we have secured.
And not at a throttle back.
Correct. So knowing now what our expenditures are going to be, knowing now that we have fully signed agreements with Washington and Oregon, we are confident we can move forward with the project and have all the funds needed to advance it at the schedule that Kiewit's identifying.
Which is not throttled back.
Right.
Correct.
Right. Okay.
There was concern previously about.
Right. That's what I'm raising. I'm trying to make sure I understand what happened.
We didn't have all of the final numbers.
Right.
We didn't want to be overconfident with what we were going to have. Now that we have the numbers and we know the agreements are in place, we can more confidently say that we've got the funding to move ahead at a normal pace.
Okay.
On a defined schedule.
Okay. I did not understand that, so I'm glad
And
that
that's
we took that time. Thanks.
Things are solidified.
Which is good. With that,
That's evolved since the last meeting.
that would explain why I don't know it.
So before you move on, we've got a meeting tomorrow with Kiewit to go through their schedule program and
Correct.
so on. Just, I don't see them on board, but I was notified by Kevin Greenwood, there's going to be a lift of the lift span tomorrow morning at 8:00, which is just before the 9:00 meeting, and they expect it to take about an hour. So I think we need to get a hold of Kiewit and make sure that if they miss that window.
Oh, they use a different bridge.
That's the bridge of the gods.
That's good to know. I'll let them, I'll make sure they know. And make sure all of us know to get up and
It wasn't on the reader board.
we're gonna have a crowd to work tomorrow.
Well, the problem is if you assume that it's gonna be open at 8, there could be a backup.
Yes,
So
probably will be. So.
So I want to put just one clarification on Arthur's statement, because I think we've got enough funding to get through design. And what he did say that is correct is that is really our current goal until we know where we are on the federal funding. So that is kind of, I think you're right. It's become our new baseline is let's get this interim piece done as the federal funding goes through the cycle.
Yeah, I think we just have to be really explicit because when we change things, especially when we change from meeting to meeting, let's make sure that we're all talking the same language, because there are going to be a lot of people confused out there and they're going to ask me questions. Up until this minute, I would have told them the wrong thing.
Well,
No, that's good.
Continue with that. If for some reason the 2025 BIP gets awarded shortly and we get full funding off of that, then of course we're going to come back and look at hard accelerating wherever we can.
So what,
Probably adding scope back in.
yeah, one of the things that I was gonna say is that anytime, if we secure full construction funding before we get to 60% design or even after 60% design, we will have to revisit the project approach and the project schedule and general approach. Because right now we're we're assuming construction in 2027. We're working towards getting the plans done for that, but we're not doing all construction activities we would do if we had full funding.
You mean things like pre-ordering materials? Yeah.
That kind of thing. So early works packages, that kind of stuff would ramp up if we knew we were fully funded to go to construction. So
Is one of the main advantages of our procurement method.
right. We have that
Because of the funding, we're
flexibility.
not able to take full advantage of that.
But even if we did get the bid tomorrow, it's probably a 1.5 year negotiation to get it signed and sealed and the agreement in place. So just going by,
We were all coming up.
just coming by current experiences,
Still be able to get that. Once we know we're going to have it,
you could start planning, right?
because it would then be secured, more secured funding, and we would know we could move forward. So, I mean,
Well, that would open up a whole bunch of more activities that we would really want to take advantage of early.
You'd be identifying paths to mobilize, right?
A lot more paths to mobilize, a whole lot more opportunities that we can keep the cost scope down as well
Yeah.
in this project. Come in within budget. Yeah, locks up and come in within budget and actually deliver this bridge, which is our ultimate goal. It's great to hit these milestones in the meantime.
okay, so the next thing, and I'm going to transfer over, I think Christie's on. Yep. So Christie, do you want to give them an update on the FEIS and Rod?
Yeah, you bet. Hi, everybody. Christy Duncan here, and I wanted to give you an update as we've now closed the cooperating agency review period. Some time ago, you asked me to provide a little checklist, and I think you asked specifically, Mike, for 10 items, and we actually ended up with 11. We are now at the 10th item. And that item is still not confirmed, but it does look like we will not have to go to the USDOT Secretary's office with a final review. So I haven't heard that for absolute sure, but that's what it's looking like today. So with that in mind, let me say that the cooperating agencies, of the 4 cooperating agencies, only one, the Bureau of Indian Affairs, provide us with any actual comments. And those comments were very light. They just some requests for change in acronyms and a few things called out here and there. We've already started on those changes in the document. The other 3 cooperating agencies, USDOT sent us a letter with no comments. It received an email from the Coast Guard with no comments. And we haven't heard anything from the Corps, which is fine. So I think that we can say that we've made really good progress this month, and we're very close. I will confirm one way or the other with FHWA in the next day or so, and then work with ODOT to incorporate the changes. And hopefully, and I'll let you know as soon as I know if we can send this out for signature in the next week or so. So good progress.
And for you, do we have to resubmit when you make the very minor changes? Do they have to go back through everybody or no?
The only folks who will need to look at it are ODOT and FHWA, as they are co-signers, and they will look at these comments before we accept them. So we'll make a track changes document, ask Carol at ODOT to look at it, and Misty's on medical leave, so someone else, probably Thomas, will look at those.
Eric?
I was curious about, we talked a little bit about the navigational impact report that needed to be updated.
Yes.
Does the Coast Guard do that, or is that something that we need to do for the Coast Guard?
We need to do it for the Coast Guard. It does not intersect with the NEPA process at all. So we're working on that. A separate group of people are starting the work. What the navigation impact report involves is really a survey, essentially, of users of the river. And that was last done in 2019. So the Coast Guard has asked that we refresh that information.
Okay, so it is us. Okay. Thank you.
Christy, so the public is tracking this project. Could you explain really briefly what the import of the record of decision is? What does that allow us to do?
Pretty much what we are doing, what it does is establishes formally the record that says that the Federal Highways Administration has acknowledged that they will take the action of moving forward with this project. And in order to do that, that they have checked the boxes on all the required reviews that they needed to do, and they have disclosed any potential impacts that this project may occur.
Thank you very much.
Hey, great news, Christie. So with a little bit of luck, we can sign this thing in September.
Yes, I think keep your fingers crossed and salt over the shoulder, that sort of thing, and we're on a good track.
Okay. Anything else, Mike?
No, not for this.
There's one,
Razor.
I know you've had a couple more meetings with Kiewit on foundation designs. Can you kind of give us a quick brief of what's going on there?
Yeah, so we've been meeting with Kiewit, just like I said, some value engineering efforts on the foundation design as we get into starting 1B. So we've identified some reductions in shafts, reductions in girders, beams as well. They're going to quantify those. They're working on, the team's kind of getting together and working on producing a document that can be brought to the board and more formally explain it to you. But basically they've just been working through the summer getting refinements done. So in a number of the locations, instead of having 4 shafts, we're going to be able to do 2 shafts. Instead of doing 6 shafts, we'll be able to do 4 shafts, which are fairly large savings to the project. We'll get you a better number than fairly large, but I'm not going to put a number out there right now. It's significant. I don't want to, because we'll put a number out there and that'll be the number. So until we get
Okay, we got you down for 117 million, right?
something like that, yes. So we'll get that and bring it back to you. But yeah, it's making good progress towards refining the project cost and getting the cost down. So.
But shaft size went up, right?
No, they were actually, I think, going to be able to maintain the shaft size as well.
Really? So bigger savings.
Part of that came from vessel collision. They were able to refine the vessels that are going to be impacting these shafts. So that allowed for some reduction, and that just came from refinements of the model and refinements of the data.
So I guess explain a little bit more what we're talking about. Yeah, exactly.
Shaft size is still about 9 foot. Yeah. 9 foot 2.
So where we had 9 piers in the water, which previously, when we did our previous cost estimate, had 4 9.5 foot drilled shafts at each pier location, and 6 at the pier locations adjacent to the channel.
Okay.
So instead of that, they are now looking at the same 9 pier locations, but having 2 shafts at all locations except for the 2 next to the channel where they'll have 4.
Well, I thought the 2 closest to the channel will have 4.
Correct. That's what I said.
So the outside ones remain at 4. The inside ones go from 6 to 4.
To 4, yes.
So it's just,
You said
it'll
2
be a
different things,
substantial.
Ben.
Yeah.
Say again, what is it?
You're dropping the 4 shafts down to 2 shafts
For where?
outside of the main channel.
Okay,
At
so
the main
for
channel.
7 of the 9.
Yes.
Yes. The other 2 are dropping from 6 to 4.
So 4 to 2, 6 to 4.
Yes.
That's not what you said.
No, unless that changed today. Because you have the channel,
Yes.
the
They're
side, and you have a second pier
right next to that.
right next to them. Those 4
Maybe 4.
are at 4.
Then everything.
These used to be 6, now they're 4. These used to be 4, they stay 4.
Okay.
Everything else going out goes to 2.
So how many, you lost me, how many of each then?
There's about
A little bit more than half.
Half of what? Half
We
total?
cut the number of piers down by a little bit less than half.
So
Remember, we're getting rid of about 14 drilled shafts.
You said 40 to 22?
According to my math, not a math major. 40 to 22 shafts.
Do we have a math major in the room? Oh, wait, that's me. No.
It's a significant.
This is a really good thing. This is gonna help. us
Almost
not only-
half the number of drill shafts reduced.
This is a big thing. It's not only gonna save money, it's gonna save time, which is gonna save even more.
So please explain to me what of the engineering requirements allows this change? What have they further refined that allows them to say they don't need as much steel, steel and concrete underneath this?
Loadings that are on the shafts, the vessel collision loading we reduced was one of the main factors in it.
And that's based on
Hey, Mike.
information.
Hey, Mike.
Yeah.
Hey, Mike. One of the other really important things, and it's part of the evolving design, this is how, the design kind of works, is that they're also taking into account the structural steel part of the drilled shaft and accounting for that in the structural analysis. In the early phases of the steel around the casing, so to speak.
Right.
Early on in a shaft design, you don't take that into account, and then as the design refines a little bit, you're able to take that into account.
Yeah.
That's James Shear.
So
By the way.
steel casing around the shaft.
So talk about that a little bit. So I know to me a shaft is rebar and concrete. You're saying there's more than that?
There's a steel casing that goes around the outside. That as well. And they're taking that steel casing into account when they take into strict
Thank you.
calculations.
But to be clear, this is only just being explored, correct? Like, so we're just talking.
No, they're moving forward with the reduction in shafts. And they're gonna be summarizing next week the items that they're moving forward with and the items that are still being considered. So the shafts are one thing that they're definitely going to move forward with furthering the design on.
And there's no like decision point here. It's like no one could argue with, there's no other side to it.
No.
It's not like someone would argue, it's like, yeah, your bridge isn't strong enough. Okay, because it meets the specifications.
One thing that we will be needing, one of the reasons that 4 shafts was beneficial is during construction, some of the biggest loads that a bridge sees is during construction when everything's not tied together and things are kind of out of balance, so to speak. And so having 4 shafts kind of helped offset that out of balance. And now in cases where we have 2 shafts in the construction method where we're out of balance, we're going to have to put some temporary false work in the river to help support the bridge during construction, and then that temporary false work can be removed. So that was kind of the debating point and the analysis that needed to be done over the past couple of weeks.
Okay, so so you've now done the math to see that during construction there are techniques that you can use to stabilize it. So we can move forward with that. That's great.
It'll also reduce the geotechnical effort because the geotechnical was looking at 1 drilling per shaft. So the reduction in shaft will reduce the number of drilling.
Great, thank you.
Good. Anything else, Mike? Hey,
Yep.
yeah, Rob, go ahead.
Does your NEPA documentation have the flexibility to make these kinds of changes? Because just parallel, this is happening on earthquake Burnside, and they're going through a painstaking NEPA reevaluation to justify changing shaft sizes and numbers of shafts and stuff like that. So I don't know what your documents look like. I just throwing that out there. So
Christy, you want to weigh in on that? She's still.
From what I understand, Rob, the changes aren't changing the geography of the actual bridge, and that we're going down, we're not going up. So we're in a good position.
yeah, I just the same type of things are happening. They're doing good things, but it's still going through the process of getting it recertified and stuff like that. So hey, I don't know what your stuff looks like. And it could be completely different, written differently than the earthquakes. So just throwing that out there.
But it should be less Pentac impact, less impact overall, so you don't need to do a reeval if you're having less impact.
Well, that an earthquake, they are doing just that, even though they are doing less impact, it's being recertified to document.
Oh,
I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there. So just,
That's a good point, Rob. We'll check it.
okay.
Okay, let's go on government relations. Any report out today?
Got a couple quick notes here, Chair. Government relations is primarily focused on getting ready for the DC trip, happening September 14th through the 17th. We'll have a project delegation heading over to meet with members of Congress, representatives from US DOT agencies. We'll be delivering a project update and advocating on behalf of project's Bridge Investment Program application. Our project's federal lobbyist summit strategies. They're busy at work scheduling meetings. Locally, we're working on finalizing materials, including a new project background, one pager, and folio. Locally here in a couple of weeks, we have a member of Senator Murray's field team visiting the project. So Washington commissioners will need a couple of you all to meet with Tony Ball on September 2nd. I'll be in touch with more information on that. Jake Oakenberg from Summit Strategies will be coming out from Portland to guide that tour. One bit from the states, Oregon is holding their special session on Friday to address the Department of Transportation's funding deficit. The governor believes there's a deal worked out to increase the gas tax by, I think it's 6 cents, boost a few registration fees to raise revenue to fund ODOT operations and maintenance. So that'll be happening this Friday, August 29th. It doesn't affect our funding, but ODOT having money to pay staff to process documents and whatnot is a good thing for us. And that's it.
Okay, let's move on. Partner updates, federal highways, ODOT, WashDOT. Anybody would like to contribute something? I'm looking at Rob.
Nothing else. Oh, I did close the loop on your consultant's utility insurance question. I got back to him on that one.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Angie, or I'm looking through the list here.
Nothing from me. Thank you.
Okay. Let's move on. Consent agenda, invoice approvals. Mike, you want to lead that?
Yep, so in the packet was the invoices for this month. They've been through the E&C committee as well as the Funding and Finance Committee. Both have concurred with moving forward with these or bringing these to the board for final approval. The ones in yellow, we are starting to set up ACH or automatic, I'll call it automatic electronic payment rather than sending a check. So we're starting to get some of the folks onto that system, so it makes it a little more efficient.
The acronym never makes sense.
Something clearinghouse.
No, it doesn't. I don't even remember what it is.
Something clearinghouse.
Is that what it is? Yeah.
Automated clearinghouse.
Could I have a motion?
I would make a motion that we go ahead and pay our bills for this month.
I'll second that motion. We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Okay. Motion passes. Committee reports, engineering and construction. Are you gonna do it or is Catherine gonna do it?
I'm on.
I was gonna do it
Okay.
remotely.
Okay, Catherine, you're on.
Yes, sir. This meeting, we had an amazing marketing brief. And so I want to thank the team that came in and took time. And I feel very educated and I'm ready, or a little bit more ready for September. Looking forward to the pointers. We also approved the multiple invoices, which takes some time to go through and talk and discuss. And then we also had the HNTB addendum. And I think we're in a good trot. So anything I missed, Eric?
No, and I think we're talking about the addendum later on, so we can get into that then.
Okay, any comments, questions on engineering construction?
So I I take that back, Catherine. Sorry. We did talk a fair amount about the planning elements that both HNTB and Hewitt are going through to get us. So we have a running start. There's a huge amount of effort by both of those teams going in to make sure that we have it planned out, where we're going, where we're starting from, and what we need to look at first so we can pick those off. And I think that's just having been involved in that, seeing that time being taken now before everybody dives in and starts filling in timesheets is great.
I think what we're talking about here is the last page of the package. There's kind of a checklist of what we need to have done before we get notice to proceed on time. And we talked about that and trying to get everybody focused on make sure we're ready to go and not have some false starts. Governance. Admin, anything from you?
The only issue I have to raise is we're supposed to have a meeting on Wednesday, but I have an unavoidable conflict. I have an all-day session that has come up that can't be scheduled around me. So the question is whether you guys want to have the meeting without me or reschedule.
I'm fine rescheduling.
So I don't know what's on our agenda other than we're going to have the presentation. It sounds like that's movable. What else? I haven't seen a draft agenda, so I don't know that.
We're going to present our prevailing wage compliance manual as a final, but it's not an urgent issue since we're not going to go to construction soon, so we can reschedule it.
Yep. Let's either push it a month if there's nothing else.
Sounds like you're going to push a month easily, right? Let's just do that since there was never a meeting that we don't need to have.
Okay.
I don't know if this is the place to do it or not, but I'll throw it out there. We've got a new commissioner joined us, Mark, and we need to assign him to a subcommittee. And
banking and finance.
I would suggest that based on Mark's background, extensive background, we at least initially assign him to the Budget and Finance Committee. Like all of us, sometime in the future, we'll probably move around as the needs are and the desires are available. But I would suggest that Mark start out in the Budget and Finance Committee. We need to talk about that, or
are you acceptable for a lifetime commitment?
Why are you limiting him to one?
we want to ease him into this one.
I mean, I think it would make sense for you to have that discussion with him privately. I don't know if you already have.
We already have.
Okay.
So
if he's amenable, then you're amenable. Yep.
Is everybody okay with me just assigning him to the Budget and Finance, or do you want to take a motion and do it as a whole? How would you like to do this since we don't have it written down?
I'd like to think about it.
No, we got him going. Let's put him to work.
What do the bylaws say?
If it's a board action, then we need to make a motion.
And it's something that's not on the agenda. So I like the idea of having time to think about something. And since this is the first assignment of someone to a committee beyond the initial committee assignments, it's not the specifics of it. Obviously, he's more qualified than anyone else here. Maybe you guys can fight it out. You're both really ridiculously qualified. So that's not the issue. It's simply what does the structure, what mechanisms do we go through for an appointment? If we haven't thought that through, we should think it through.
Okay, so when can your committee come back with the approach?
Well, I mean, you could put it on an agenda and it could be our discussion for next meeting after we've done some thinking about it. But you know, it's like this is,
Technically, we can add it to the agenda today. And
no, I know that there's nothing technically that we can't do. No, I'm not talking about that. But in terms of good governance, it makes sense if you're doing something new, you're doing something you haven't thought through carefully. I don't know if I have a problem. I can't imagine why I would have a problem with this, but I haven't had a chance to think about it because I didn't see it on the list of things I needed to think about. So
I think what Arthur's pointing out is we're spending a lot of time and effort thinking about and planning how we're going to get started on the design, we should be just as deliberate about how we run the organization.
Sounds like we gotta have a
That's what I
government.
meant to say.
Sounds like the government's meeting back on.
It doesn't have to be. If something appears in our packet, it says at this meeting, you're going to have a discussion about this subject. And staff is going to brief us on what they know about it. And Kelly can say, yep, your bylaws say X, Y, Z. And I can say, okay, I thought about that and that sounds absolutely reasonable. It doesn't take a whole meeting to discuss that. But, we've had zero time to think about it. Maybe 2 minutes is worth it.
Okay, so how about we put it on for consent agenda for the next meeting? And we can go to the.
Just put it at the end of today's meeting. Gives us time to think.
I don't know.
Sounds like the decision is already kind of made, is all I'm trying to say. And so if we can get someone plugged in earlier, I don't disagree.
Yeah.
Adding it and saying there's a process is good.
Mark, is anyone stopping you from going to the budget and finance meeting?
That's what I was gonna ask is.
I attended the last one.
Yeah.
I would like to hear what the bylaws have to say, because
Sure.
obviously we've talked about this in the past and have it in our bylaws.
Advisory committees may be created by the first co-chair with the consent of the board to provide advice to the project director or executive director. Authority committees exist at the discretion of the board and may be formed, dismantled, inactivated, or activated as needs dictate.
It doesn't talk about the membership, though, does it?
It doesn't, but it's
Kind of implicit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The functions of the committee shall be designated at the time of the
This offer, Mark, joined Dan and I for a conversation, just talking about some of the communication stuff that's going on. And I found it very beneficial to hear about some of the things that Mark has done in his past. And some of those relate to some of the challenges I think that we've seen, and others are nice anecdotes. But
He's a commissioner no matter what.
Yep.
He's been invited to the Funding and Finance Committee meeting.
Yep.
He'll be invited to future Funding and Finance Committee meetings.
Right.
Let's just add this as a consent item at the next board meeting and take a vote. I don't think any point, and if somebody wants to make a modification before then, other than that, everything that would happen, whether you approve it today or not, it's still going to happen.
I am good with that.
Moving on. Let's see what happens when you add stuff to the agenda without putting it on the agenda.
Right? And there is a fundamental reason we actually do have an agenda.
Fine, let's move on. Okay. New business, action items.
All right, so new action items. The first one, I'm gonna let T describe this because he's our policy guy. He likes to write policies. So you want to describe this new one?
Sure.
We have a lot of them that are coming, so just so you know.
So this is actually the first series of our effort to strengthening our policies and procedures in place. This one is amending the policy number 1 that was adopted by board almost a year ago, more than a year ago, July 2024. That's called progress billing and payment and invoice review and approval policy that has a lot of steps and policies to approve the consultants and contractors invoices. We had comments and concerns from HRWSBA regarding our process for verifying the direct labor rates and then applicable ICRs or the fee and other direct costs. So this procedure number 2 is addressing that concern with a step-by-step procedures to verify and validate the applicable direct and indirect costs. So that's the staff report to get the board's approval to adopt this revision to the policy number 1.
So has there been legal review of this? I presume it's been through full legal review.
We did not go through legal review, but we did go through with our interim financial director, Debbie, as well as our CPAs, the Moss Adams, Baker Tilly.
I guess it's a professional review rather than legal review, so.
Right. Yeah, the experts review. Experts review.
Expert review, thank you.
And this basically refines the alignment with CFR Part 200.
Exactly.
Which I think is a good thing. We've got checklists now that we can go through and show people that here's, when we sign it, here's what that means. Keeps us out of trouble with audits later on.
Yep. And in fact, this was provided to FHWA when they were requesting what kind of a procedure to have to verify all the direct cost verification and reasonableness and appropriately applied to the product.
The other thing is when we've got $5 million, $10 million grants now, they look at you a certain way, but when you have a $200 million grant, $500 million grant, we're going to get some more scrutiny. So having a written procedure that everybody agrees to is very good.
So when I read this, I saw it was to my uneducated eyes, it looks like a very reasonable, intelligent way to break a complicated problem down into step by step by step. And I was just left scratching my head as to exactly who goes through the checklist. Is that what you do, or is that what Debbie does, or how do we make sure we have compliance with it?
Yeah, so our checklist has a different parts reviewed by different people. So for example, all the approved rates are being used for their timesheets and the calculation of the direct costs. That's the one part at the beginning of the process.
And who does that?
It's done by contract and procurement team as a contract administration function. And then once it passes that point, it's being reviewed by project team, like our design manager, checking these guys did deliver this using this time, which is reasonably assessed. And then he or she approves and sign off that section. And our product controls, that function goes to revisiting everything to confirm that meets with the contracts and their own value or their progress are meeting with their spending. And then finally, verified by Mike, the project director, sign off. And then on top of that, if it's an HNTV contract, which we are approving, but we have another layer that Debbie, as a interim director, looking at as a whole, because we don't want to approve ours only, and then it always goes to the FNF and the ENC committee if it's being presented to this committee or board.
Yeah,
our two committees look at I call it a CERT summary page that basically shows who signed off, who reviewed from HNTB a keyword invoice in these 15 areas. And each of the areas are checked off. If they're not checked off, then we don't approve it. We ask the question, why did you check off this section? And then we have a discussion about it.
And so for someone looking from the outside, this helps people appreciate or understand why a project of this size has this number of people in this level of complexity. Because you need controls when you're spending hundreds of millions of dollars, and this is what controls look like.
Exactly. And if there's any checkboxes not checked, actually we reject it and then have them resubmit it.
Yeah.
So that had happened many times with a contractor.
And the rejection can happen at any step. So as soon as the first person sees something that's not compliant, it immediately just goes through rejection and goes back and they start over.
That's really helpful. Thank you.
Sure.
Keep going. We need to approve this.
Action on the motion.
Do you have an action item on it?
I move to adopt the revised project policy number 1.
I will second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
The one thing that I just wanted to say after y'all did that was there's a number of CFR requirements that require policies to be put in place. So the contracting procurement group's going through now developing those, so you'll see more of these coming through. Just to be aware, but it's in order to be in compliance with federal regulations as direct recipients. The authority has different responsibilities than if they were a local agency and the states were, say, a direct recipient of a grant. So we're trying to make sure that we are making sure that you have all the procedures and policies in place to meet all the CFR responsibilities so that you guys are compliant.
So this is because BIP.
Infra, BIP, any federal
I
grant,
was gonna ask about the difference. There's no difference.
Federal-
For,
any federal grant or federal project has to have this in place, especially as a direct recipient.
so by the time we get signed or documents available for signing for infra, that's gonna come along with a slug of these CFR compliance policies.
Yeah, so we did an internal audit to just check the authority against compliance for federal aid projects.
Right.
And identified the things that you need to have in place, and they're working through now getting you those in place so that you're fully compliant when you start to expend those federal funds.
And so we're looking to get those all lined up, and hopefully we'll get 97% of them lined up and have one or two left.
Yes,
Yeah.
ideally, yeah. Ideally 100%.
100%.
Hopefully we have all of them lined up.
There are 18 of them, and that's specifically CFR 23, that's a highway and federal highway administration section. And they have a specific section 172-5. And C has recipients has to have written policy and procedures and mechanism to update that. And there are 18 of them. We had that in our initial assessment as one item, but we are breaking into each small items and attacking one of each of them to have a policy to meet that requirements.
I think it's important to note that you did not look at notes once in all of that statement you just made. So obviously you really know what you're talking about.
Okay, let's move on. Next one, Washington State Department of Transportation Amendment 2.
So this is Amendment 2. This is for the addition of the $40 million of additional Washington funds. This is amendment to the grant that we previously had for $15 million. So it revises it from a $15 million total to $55 million. We had no changes to what WSBA had proposed. With your concurrence to execute, we will send that back to WSBA, letting them know that you guys are ready to execute. They will run it through their final forms review through their legal, and they'll tell us when we can sign. So right now, we're just wanting authorization for one of the co-chairs to sign the documents once we receive them back from WSBA.
And this was reviewed by legal counsel Mark Reno.
Of course, we need this to give a notice to proceed to Kiewit.
Kiewit as well, yes.
I would move that we authorize amendment number 2 for the interagency agreement. UCB 3934. $4 million additional.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Contract mod engineering related services to HNTB.
So this is for HNTB's owner's rep services. If you remember back in January, we had signed an amendment when we thought we were going to start 1B in January. With the delay in starting 1B to September, that 2-year time frame has shifted 9 months. So this is to realign our contract time-wise back to the 2-year time frame. So it will extend our existing contract from December of 26 through September of 27 in order to align us with that, as well as picking up some of the task items that we had left out when we weren't sure in January how we were going to proceed. So adding like toll systems design and completing some of those activities in order to be able to go to construction in 27. The difference in amount on that is the numbers on here, $5,577,799. And that is in addition to our contract that we had in January of last year. So it's the incremental increase above that for that additional 9 months.
One thing that we had talked about is that as we move into 1B and then into 2, I was concerned that you don't have enough staffing to do what we really need to do in 1B, doing oversight over design and so on. And I'm comfortable that with your new organization, you're there. I think we have to understand now that we're going to start spending more money in this phase than what we have in 1A. And as we get into 2, it's going to ramp up even higher. So that's part of running a project this big. We're going to have to spend some money. So just kind of trying to sensitize everybody to it. We're no longer thinking about a project. We're now we are a project, and we need to manage ourselves as a big project. And when we're talking about the money we're talking about, we're spending a lot of money per month. When we get into construction, it'll be somewhere between 10 and $20 million a month. And probably 10% of that during this next phase. So we're going to be spending some money.
It's all budgeted. It's all.
Oh, yeah, it's all, but it's just human nature. If you haven't been around big projects, and this is not a big project, but it's big for this region, it can kind of be a little scary for people to see the expenditures, how fast this thing's going to start spending money. But we just got to realize, yeah, it's normal.
So for the rest of the authority, just bring this up because this is when we were going to talk about the contract. We asked questions about the risk register update because the amendment only calls for updates 6 times a year. And I was personally concerned with that little of oversight given the extraordinary large project we're talking about. So the engineering construction committee will be updated and informed. And we also asked about we really got into the organizational chart as well because we wanted to ensure that there was enough support so that we were getting as updated as we wanted to be, but also Mike Shannon was attending the meetings that he needs to be and others were delegated as such. And it also assumes that there's no more hurdles in NEPA and that the tribal negotiations continue in a really positive manner. So I brought up questions specifically as to what type of, increase in manpower and dollar, would happen if there was a hurdle, let's say in NEPA. So just to give the rest of the authority that information. Over.
Okay, with that, we have a motion to.
We have a motion.
I think that was on the previous one.
Yeah, that was the previous one.
I move to execute the contract modification with HNTB Corporation for a net increase to the contract in the not to exceed amount of $5,577,799 for an extended performance period with revised scope of work.
Have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Okay, the last one that I have here is amend the progressive design build contract, 1A contract with Kiewit.
Yeah, so when we did Keyrit's extension, we had went through August 31st. It's going to take us a little bit longer than that to get everything finalized with their contract. So this is a no budget adjustment. It just extends our contract. We go 1 month to allow us time to just finalize their 1B. So that's all it is. No dollar changes, just continue.
Time extension.
Just time extension for 1 month.
So, the one thing that kind of jumped out on me is I think the work for the bridge monitoring goes through the end of October, and that's 1A work. Should this extend out to the end of October to allow that work to complete?
Or would you roll it into 2?
Yeah.
Well, it's budgeted in 1A, and we approved the budget already.
About the installation of the monitoring.
Yeah.
Monitoring will continue through the.
The monitoring will continue to do that. My thing is it just puts Hewitt working for a month without a contract.
We should make a modification to this to extend this. I'm going to just say extend it to the end of the year and
give us a little bit, get everything cleaned up.
Most of the activities, if not well, but bridge monitoring is gonna be in 1B. But this would allow us to finish that 1A.
The
bridge
installation,
monitoring,
setting up.
Okay, with just
One A
overlap.
was to include installation,
Installation.
And set up.
monitoring of it and capturing data and analyzing it
Right.
is in one B.
Yeah, so instead of rolling it all over, we wanted to run them concurrently just because it was already defined. So yeah, that modification should probably be made to the motion.
And I mean, that's okay if they overlap.
Yeah.
Happens.
So could we restate the motion to include that it would be modified to extend through the end of the year due to the bridge monitoring system?
Okay.
I would second that.
Through December 31st of 25, just to make sure we're clear on which
Yeah.
year we're talking
Yeah,
about.
that's correct. Okay, we've got a motion, we've got a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Open carried, thank you. Informational items,
Dan, do you want to go over,
project messages.
go over the key messages?
Jake Edwards is teed up to do that.
Was it, okay, sorry. Jake?
Yeah, hi, everybody. So, two big groupings. One's supporting our bridge investment program application, the BIP. So, some key messaging around that. We have a scheduled trip for DC in September. So we'll be working with those commissioners going on communications. We are developing a one-pager and folio on new materials for the website. And then we are moving project messaging through our communications channels, which include social media, the website, project newsletter, and our earned media conversations. And as Dan mentioned, Senator Murray's staff will be coming to tour the bridge and potentially our office. So please, if you're from the Washington side, if you're available, if you can attend that, that would be great. Second big bucket is highlighting our project progress. So planning for our record of decision signing event and developing communications around that. Preparing to roll out design elements, including the aesthetics memo, is a big highlight that we want to focus on. And then, of course, some other future work that's being done, such as core sampling. And we will be looking at doing presentations to local groups, which can include local governments and any other organization that is interested. So that's sort of our highlight so far.
You know, Jake, a couple things maybe to consider. You didn't state anything about notice to proceed on design. That's kind of a major milestone to show people we're pushing into final design. The other thing, and we talked about this, is sometime this fall, maybe doing a series of stories on design progression and what have we done thus far on design to try and drive cost out. And if you remember way back when we changed to steel, it allowed us to drop 2 piers in the water. It allows us to make the spans longer. Today you heard that we're changing the foundations, or the foundations are evolving from a 4-shaft to a 2-shaft. And I can see a story of, well, what is that? And why is that so important? And what does it really buy you more than just cost? It buys you hopefully a shorter construction schedule, which means if we have the funding, we can open a new bridge quicker. And instead of having a 4-shaft type of an approach. But I could see like a series of stories building up the knowledge base of the community that says, why is this a big deal? So I would offer up, maybe you want to consider adding that to your list. And it plays well into your core sampling and the rest of it.
So
Just a thought.
What I hear most from people are questions about why is it so hard to design a bridge? Are you guys done already? You had lots of time. Why isn't design done yet? And I think the closer that people are to understanding the technical complexity without forcing them to do any math, the better the understanding is. So I think that we're saying the same. I think
Somebody's got their.
Yeah. So I think that it's us, yeah.
Yeah, but it's us going through something else. Check your.
Yes.
Somebody still wants
But now, anyone hear us?
Catherine, can you
I
hear us?
I can hear you.
Okay, great. Sorry, a little technical problem. Yeah, so I just think helping people appreciate the complexity of the problem without forcing them to solve it themselves, but just little things like discussion of some of the elements that you've described, I think are going to be helpful in bringing the public along with the reason that this project takes time, with the reason that you have to have this many people involved in it, with the reason it's going to cost this much. And you're never going to get people to say, yeah, that entirely makes sense, but just helping bring people along that this is a big and complex project.
Yeah, and as we get closer to construction, maybe a couple of stories on big barges and big heavy lift cranes and what's it going to look like in a month out in the river while you're trying to bring your boat in and out of the marina. Yeah. Here's the traffic that you're going to start to see.
We have a communications committee meeting tomorrow and can put this on the agenda.
Yeah, I would say, what you're describing is sort of fits better in the sort of our 90-day plan. So what are we looking at doing in the next 2 to 3 months, this fall going into the winter? Like you said, highlighting some of the design elements. Something you talked about last meeting was really helping people understand how many people are working on this project. Sort of plays into that complexity piece of building a bridge, explaining like someone said earlier this meeting, it's not just 12 individuals representing this region. It's literally hundreds of people working on this project together. So yeah, we will definitely add that to our sort of 90-day side of communications plans.
Great. So you brought up the issue of addressing the letting of the contract, design contract. Isn't that communications already done? I mean, I've seen there have been TV items on it. It's been all over the net. It's been in all the newspapers. Is there more to do on that subject?
So we announced when the board took the action to approve the Kiewit contract, we put out a project update around that.
Right.
And we've been messaging that. So it's slightly different from the notice to proceed.
Oh, okay.
Which could be another opportunity. And then once design resumes, start off with some of these other elements, what to expect. Here's what we'll learn. Here's what we've done so far.
Okay.
I'm sorry. For me, it gets back to the basic. We need the money, and our messaging needs to be on point with the money. If there was more people from the public attending our meetings and reviewing our meetings that actually cared, everybody I hear says, go build the damn bridge. Go get it built. That's what we care about. While it would be fun to message and say, hey, we're going to save 35% of the number of piers, somebody else is going to hop on and go, well, it sounds like you either over designed it in the first place or now you're making it dangerous. And we already have one dangerous bridge. We don't want another one. And so while it can be fun to, keep everyone informed, I like to tell people what the end result is in the beginning. But between now and then, we need money, and that's the only thing we truly need.
We can accomplish both of those by showing how we're progressing the project, which is going to lead to strengthening our position that we're ready for the funding. And I think we do need to communicate out how the project is progressing and that we're showing that we are moving forward and how we're putting the money that we're getting to good use, right? And doing it in a responsible way so that the people who are going to make the funding decisions for the next tranche of money can look at that as an example and say, hey, look what good things they've done with this money. They've got this project under control. They're making good decisions. Let's give them the rest of the money because they're showing that they can responsibly deliver this project. So I think that they go hand in hand. I agree it's not just feel good stories, but it should be deliberate stories that show that we can deliver this project.
And if you make that statement, you'd also better make the statement of this is how much we've saved and this is how much less money we need to ask for.
I think there are different targets for the different communications that we're talking about. I really, truly, I agree with Mike that the public needs to have an appreciation for the work that's happening, why it's complex, why it's beneficial, and it's non-obvious. So I don't agree that all that matters is that we need money to construct the bridge. Same time, we need money to construct the bridge, and without constructing a bridge, having a design that's really sophisticated and takes into account all of these complicated things doesn't do anyone any good because you can't drive on it. So I don't think we're arguing, but I think there are different markets for the different arguments.
I think the other thing to keep in mind is that there's outside influences that are driving up cost of big projects all over the country. And we're not going to be any different. And we know right now today that we have a challenge, even if we got the full funding, we still have a challenge to be able to do it for that amount of funding. So we have to be very aggressive in identifying where can we cut and save and scrimp to bring the price down to not only fit within a funding profile that we think we can get, but also allow for room that if inflation takes off, and we do have indications that the price index is taken off, we're not going to have to necessarily go back and ask for another $300, $400, $500 million because we've taken action up front to try and mitigate that. That's just good, sound project management.
I think it's the sound project management is to do it as cheaply as possible and to get the best value. The motivation for that, which you're describing, is irrelevant to that discussion. This is, the first thing people are going to say is, well, why didn't you design it as cheaply as you could in the first place? Which I think is what...
because there was no design in the first place.
Oh, I mean, all the messages are valid. The secret sauce is getting the message to the right audiences. And I think we need to do all of them to have the money to be able to deliver the bridge for the constituents that we represent. So I guess I kind of looked at Dan and Jacob to kind of, is there a way that some of these messages you target who they're directed at? We clearly need a message that's tailored to legislative and funders. We clearly need something that's tailored to the everyday driver across the bridge and everybody in between. Yeah.
Well, you guys are working on a communication plan, right? Yes. So would it maybe be good to have with new news updated at every board update on the communication plan? We can do that.
Catherine has her hand raised.
Yeah, Catherine.
I also think the point of
Unpaid board.
Go ahead, Catherine.
Yes, sir. Sorry, everybody. I also think that what's great about our staff is different social media platforms require different information, right? So you're going to educate on one social media platform, you're going to celebrate on another, you're going to do another one. And our staff knows what they're doing. I think we need to trust them with what they've presented to us. And I do think all the points that were being made, both by Jake Edwards and in the brief that I received, it was clear that the movement forward was the end goal is to get more money, but you can't, you gotta, if you want money, ask for advice. And if you want advice, you ask for money. So I think we should just, trust our staff and listen to what their plan is, because I think they know what they're doing, and I'm very impressed with what they've taught me so far. Over.
One last thing on today. I was sitting having dinner with my wife, and someone I don't know walked over from another table as they were leaving, said, "Thank you for being on the Bridge Authority. We need more people like you. Thank you very much for your help."
Wow, good.
So people are seeing.
There's no laughing involved. Excellent.
Unless it was done outside, I don't know.
I've had the same experience as well. Every once in a while.
People are paying attention.
Yes, which is nice.
Okay, let's go to the next one. BIP Infra, Oregon, Washington funding update.
No real changes there. We're just waiting to get updates on the BIP application. So we'll keep monitoring that and update you all when we hear changes or things coming out.
So just remind us, the previous years, or what are the 2 years?
25 and 26.
25 and 26.
Fiscal year 24 ran into fiscal year 25. So we submitted fiscal year 25 in June, and then we submitted fiscal year 26 in August. So we're anticipating that they will award fiscal year 25 before they award fiscal year 26. And that'll be in 2 separate awards, but that's what we're monitoring now to keep an eye on. So.
Barry, anything to add?
No, other than I think that the visit to Washington in September is going to be important, and I think it's going to be important both for intelligence gathering. What is on their mind, and what are they thinking they intend to do, but also just as time goes on, we tend to slip kind of out of sight and out of mind, and that's the last place we want to be. And so I do think it's important to be there, to be in person, to be in their offices. And I also think it's time to make that same point to our electeds, because they have opportunities, our electeds and their staff, because they have opportunities to bring this bridge back into the conversation from time to time.
So I hope our message is going to include ROD, going to include notice to proceed, going to include, hey, here's our steps through design, here's when we expect. Another item is probably what can we do further to hold the cost down on construction, throw out the concept of pre-buy on material, because we see it starting to take off. Keep throwing that out in front of them. And this is not just the congressional reps, but I know you guys are going to be talking to Department of Transportation. That's at least what I saw. That's where the real meat and potato comes, is in those discussions.
Does that come from us, or does that come from Summit Strategies?
It comes from us working with Summit.
They should be working with them to develop who needs to hear what messages.
So when is that discussion happening?
I think
it's been happening.
It's ongoing. We'll need a couple.
If I might, I think it is powerful to have especially electeds and their staff, but also the executive branch people hear it directly from representatives of the agency. They hear from lobbyists all the time, and they hear from consultants all the time, quite frankly. And I think it is important for you as elected officials representing your agency to be in their office, and you're the ones best able to tell the story. You have the most credibility with them because you have the most on the line.
Carrie, that wasn't my point.
That's important.
My point wasn't who's going to deliver the message. My point was, how is the message being crafted? And what I'm hearing is that there are already discussions happening between Summit and the project team on those key items. So there's already that list, which you were throwing out a bunch of them because you know that those are there, but it's not that you're suggesting
that it's there, but I'm assuming it will be.
That's what I'm kind of wondering. So it sounded like you were saying, hey, what about this? And I thought those discussions were already happening.
I think there is some discussions happening, but I kind of making a suggestion that before we go out, or the team goes out to DC, maybe our next meeting, we ought to have a little session of here's the messages that we're bringing out. Everybody okay, or did we miss one?
I would love to see that.
I might add one final thought, and that is that the biggest difference between this visit and previous visits, and it is a game changer in my opinion, and that is that the states have now completely funded their obligation on this project. And every time we've gone back to Washington prior to this, they have been able to dangle in front of us that, well, you know, we're not going to come in until the states are fully committed. That is a huge check mark on the checklist. The states are now fully committed, and that is a situation that most of the people they're hearing from are not able to say. So I think in terms of the importance of the messages, that's probably the biggest one.
Yep. And then I think the other one, which we talked about, is, hey, we're ready to go and we're pushing out heavy into design in an accelerated pace. Let's go. The old bridge isn't getting any younger. Okay. That's what I thought anyway. Phase 1B task list. Yes.
Yeah, so
Can we bring that up?
can you pull up the last page? So this was a list we put together with the NC committee on items that needed to be done before we gave NTP to Kiewit. Just kind of bottom line things that we needed to have before we started moving forward with Kiewit.
Almost there.
It was the very last page of this package.
These were the- Zoom
Can
in.
you blow that up about? Yeah.
We'll blow it up. Large it.
Hey, Mike, why don't you take us through the highlights of it?
Yeah, so over on the right, we identified the ones that were kind of, we felt like were required before we execute the NTP with Kiewit. So just starting at the top, you know, finalizing their level of effort, which we've got that finalized now. Finalizing the scope documents, which is 3 appendix. The first appendix is the general conditions of the scope. Appendix 3 is the technical aspects, and then attachment 3A is the kind of, I'll say it's the list of deliverables broken down into each individual discipline and each individual subtask or element within that discipline. It really gives a detailed outline of what they're going to be delivering for the project. Then there's the overarching legal contract language that we've finalized with them. And then the next one down is really that project controls element where it's, you know, their baseline budget, their baseline schedule, overlaying that budget, resource loading that onto the schedule so that we can see how they're progressing the work from a funding standpoint in alignment with how they're progressing the project so that our team can go in as we progress month by month and our SMEs can go into their documents and say, okay, you've billed us for $100,000 worth of structural work. What did you do for that structural work? And our folks will be able to go into their DGM files, look at their DGM files, and see that that stuff is progressing along the schedule that has been defined in order to meet the end goals of the final design. So, and then the, you know, last two, the billing rates is just getting their staff, verifying their pay rates, pay scales, making sure that the rates that they're planning to use are all documented so that when we get the invoices in, we have a way to go in and check that and measure it against the people that are charging the project. And then the DBE plan, as with most projects, we still have disadvantaged business enterprise, which is making sure we're meeting those requirements on the project, which is 8.5% for this phase. So just making sure that they're going to meet that goal for the project. And then submit schedules and review That's again, just finalizing that schedule. We want to make sure our SMEs have gone through and agree with the logic in the sequencing of the schedule, but also the durations of the activities. So that if they're saying it takes 1 month, does our team agree that that's a 1 month activity, or is it a 3 month activity? Making sure we have the base documents before we start. And then the next two was just securing the funding from Oregon, Washington. Those are checked off, so we feel like
Some of
those
those activities, the schedule says it's behind us.
the 22nd.
It looks like.
Yep.
They're being done.
It's 8:20 if I.
22.
22.
Yep. Well, we're at 8:25.
Yep.
So did all of those get done or?
So 822 first two, I think if you scroll up, they are done.
Yeah, the first three are done.
Yep.
We're working through the one with the contract exhibits. We've got the meeting tomorrow with Kiewit. They submitted a baseline schedule. It didn't have the detail that we wanted to see in it. So we're meeting again tomorrow to go through a more detailed version. They'll be submitting when they submit a P6 schedule, if you add all of the detail that we're going to look at tomorrow, it would be thousands of lines of information. So we're looking at a condensed, smaller time frame to be able to look at those details, but then be able to relate it to the bigger schedule, so that we can take it in bite-sized chunks and measure the project as we move month to month. So we're going through that. They're going to show us tomorrow that schedule format that they're going to be using. And their project engineer is going to be going through that with us to show how he's going to manage the project and make sure he stays on schedule, and how we'll be able to validate that.
So another method to this is that we as a team are learning how to do this for design, which when you move into the next phase, which is construction, it's going to explode as far as complexity. So we're making sure everybody's got our act together during design, and the same general principles will be used as we go into construction, but we've already gone through the learning process as a team. Okay, comments?
Makes sense.
Just a quick
Upcoming
question.
items.
We're using the system that they have already installed, correct? We're not asking them to create a new system for us, or?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Upcoming items. Mike, anything you want to highlight there?
No, the big thing is the right of way. As we start to open up 1B, we have talked to our right of way folks. We're going to start bringing those presentations back to you all, just to refresh you all on agency to agency right of way transactions, agency to private party interactions, full take right of ways versus temporary and permanent construction easements. You guys are going to own property that you don't own today. You're going to own property that you're going to want to transfer to somebody else. All of those, because we're a federal project, are all under the Federal Relocation Acts. So we just need to make sure that we're following those processes. So there'll just be a series of presentations to you, just kind of giving you some background on right away functions.
Any comments or thoughts on the upcoming actions we need to talk about? Look around the room. Don't see anybody online. Okay, with that, the next meeting will be Monday, September 8th, 2 to 4. Any final comments from anybody in the room? If not, we are adjourned. Thank you all.